Let's speak now to Thembisa Fakude, who is a researcher at Jazeera Centre for Studies in Doha, Qatar. The news organization's offices in Gaza were bombed by Israel. The United Nations Secretary General, as you heard just a few moments ago, Antonio Gutteres, also condemning the attacks on media organizations. Mr. Fakude, a very good evening to you. Thank you very much for your time. So following the bombing on the media building, are your colleagues, first of all, are they safe?
Well, yes, we haven't had any casualties, so all the colleagues are safe.
Any word from your colleagues, Mr. Fakude, and other media houses, perhaps, on how difficult it has now become to report on the conflict there?
Well, first of all, let me say that yesterday was an attack against journalism. It was an attack against the freedom of expression and freedom of the media. They continued to work, notwithstanding the difficulties that were presented by the bombing by the Israeli army. So they've managed to regroup, they've managed to use other plans and alternative plans to ensure that the world continues to hear and see what the Israeli army continues the atrocities that the Israeli army continues to commit in Gaza. So it's all systems go, there's commitment, they are upbeat, they are resolute in their pursuit of ensuring that the entire world get to know exactly what's happening on the ground in Gaza.
Mr. Fakude, I mean, what impact do you think this will have on continuing reportage on the conflict there, given the current circumstances?
Well, the objective of the Israeli army and the right-wing government of Benjamin Netanyahu is to shut down the cameras and prevent the reporters from telling the story. But all members of the media who are currently based in Gaza are resolute in ensuring that they'll continue using other alternatives and platforms to ensure that they continue telling the story. Yes, the bombing of yesterday will, to an extent, impede the normal running of our business, but we have managed somehow to ensure that other alternatives are put in place, and the story and the amplification of the voices of people of Palestine, particularly the Gazans, continues to be heard by the world at large.
And in terms of Al Jazeera, I mean, any count on the losses? I recall seeing a video of the media organizations, including yours, that were housed in that building, trying to scuffle to try and get most of their equipment out of that particular building.
Well, equipments will certainly be replaced. I don't think that's not the greatest loss, because we have alternatives and we are going to replenish whatever it is that we've lost. What is actually heartbreaking are all the personal memories that most of our crew in Gaza office could not save, and that's the saddest part. And in that building that was brought down yesterday, you had hundreds of families that resided on different floors underneath the offices, and those people have lost much more than what our office and colleagues in Gaza have lost. And our hearts, of course, go to those people who have lost much more than we have. Equipment, cameras, and all of that can be replenished. But the personal memories that people had in that office and the tenants who live in that building will never be recovered and will never be replaced.
Absolutely. In fact, I saw some of those a couple of hours ago on social media, recollections of others who have worked in that building. But with now the condemnation from the United Nations Secretary General on the attack on media there and calls for journalists to be allowed to work, is there any idea at this point, or any word perhaps that has come to your colleagues on the ground about allowing journalists to continue doing their work there?
Well, Israel has been operating with impunity ever since this conflict started. Yesterday, the colleagues in our office were lucky to actually get a notice from one of the tenants who lived in the building. There was no direct call that was made to the office informing them that there was an imminent bombing of the building. So if that call or that colleague did not get to speak to one of the tenants, chances were that we would have suffered some casualties. So Israel operates with impunity, disregard of international law, disregard of freedom of expression and freedom of media, particularly for those of the Gazans. So, we don't know what will happen henceforth, we don't know what will happen in the next hour. They continue to bombard and they come with some strange, far-fetched justifications why they continue doing what they're doing. So you have a regime that's hell-bent on suppressing the freedom of expression and wanting to make sure that the people don't get to see the atrocities and injustices that the Israeli army continues to commit in Gaza against armless people, including women and children.
Thembisa Fakude, researcher at the Al Jazeera Centre for Studies in Doha, thank you very much for joining us on the programme.